Hello, everybody. My name is Anna Bryce, and I am the VP of Programming here at the AMA Phoenix. And welcome. Really thrilled to have you here today. And we are very excited to have Stan Phelps speak for us today. We're going to be talking about differentiation, which is such an important element of marketing today and for all of our businesses. And just a quick note with Stan is Stan has spoken for all of the AMA chapters except for 6. So we are now going to be able to check off AMA Phoenix for him, and he'll be down to 5 in his quest to hit all 75 AMA chapters. So he's getting there. He's absolutely getting there. So real quick, before we get started, I would like to thank our sponsors. Without our sponsors, we just can't do what we can do. They've been with us for a while, and we really cannot thank them enough. And Taylor Wellman at at Financial Potion, I'm even saying the wrong name. She is our host. And if you ever need video done, please consider speaking to Taylor. And if you need her contact information, I can connect the two of you. But again, we thank them because we just can't do what we do without them. And then lastly, we would like to thank our supporters, which are the companies that employ our board members. Without these companies, our board members wouldn't be able to do what they do. And they put a lot of time and effort into everything the AMA does. So now I would just like to get to introducing Stan Phelps. He comes to us from North Carolina, and Stan is a Forbes contributor, a TEDx speaker, an IBM futurist, and a certified speaking professional. And he is also the best-selling author of 13 Goldfish series books that begins with Purple Goldfish 2.0, 10 ways to attract raving customers. So I think he's going to help us with differentiation and how to attract raving customers. If you need to find Stan, you can find him at stanphelpsspeaks.com, and you can check out his different workshops and his various keynotes. So Stan, welcome. I know we've been trying to do this for quite a while. Even you and I've been emailing each other over the years. So I'm finally glad that on August 25th, 2021, it has happened. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Anna and Taylor. And I want to give a shout out to Nat, because I was just recalling before that we met back in February of 2020. Doesn't that sound like a decade ago?
Certainly does.
It certainly does. So I am excited to be able to share my latest in the series. It's Pink Goldfish 2.0. I want to start, though, with a story. And I have to take you back 600 years ago and tell you about this guy right here. His name is Ashikaga Yoshimasa. I'm sure everybody knows Ashikaga. No. Ashikaga was a Japanese shogun. He was in the Osaka region of Japan. And Ashikaga had a favorite tea bowl. Much like Nat, I'm sure you've got like a favorite coffee mug, right? Someone gave to you, you could never replace it. He loved his tea bowl. One day he's not paying attention and he knocks this thing over and it smashes into pieces. Now, Nat, what would you do if you knocked your irreplaceable coffee mug that was given to you that had so much meaning? What would you do?
I'd be beside myself.
You would start crying, right? But after your tears, what would you probably do?
See if I could replace it.
Yeah, you'd get out the super glue and you're like, this time it's gonna actually work. Well, that's what Ashikaga did. He sent it out to get fixed, and it came back 2 days later, and he held it in his hands, and his heart just sank. Whoever had fixed it had used this black, ugly, coarse glue. They actually used metal staples to put it back together. And Ashikaga said, no. He said, that's not good enough. So he called in his best craftsmen throughout the entire Osaka region. And he gave it to them and he said, you have to fix this. And they went away, and it took them about 2 weeks, and they meticulously took it apart. They cleaned it, and then they used lacquer and gold to put it back together. And when they brought it back to Ashikaga and he held it in his hands, his heart leapt. This T-ball was better now than when it was brand new with no imperfections. This became an art form in Japan, and you might be familiar with it. It's called Kinsugi. It literally means golden joinery. And Nat, I'm gonna stick with you. Why do you think it was much better the second time that he got it versus the first time?
It brought that feeling back to him of the originality of the original piece.
Well, yeah, I would agree. Like, his heart leapt because it was even more beautiful now than it probably was when it was perfectly new. But it wasn't better, and this is the point of the entire book, because it was broken or flawed, right? If that was the case, it would have been fine the first time he got it.
Right.
It was better now because they weren't trying to conceal the flaws, but what were they trying to do? To actually draw attention to the flaws, to illuminate them, and to call them out. So this entire concept is about standing out, owning who you are, and being willing to be different. Now, here's the thing. You didn't come today. Everyone here is a marketer. No one came here today and didn't realize it's important to stand out and be different, right? We all know that. In fact, there's a great book by Youngmi Moon. It's called Different. And she says, even though we know it's important to stand out and be different, she says the number who are actually able to achieve competitive separation is depressingly small, right? And it turns out, we did the research, if you had to guess what percentage of people have the ability to think and act differently. Karen, do me a favor, unmute yourself. Karen, do you think that's a high number or a low number? You're still muted. Bottom left, unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, percent of people who can think and act differently.
Yeah,
I would say it's
low?
No, it's a low number.
Right. In fact, you're absolutely right, because it turns out the amount of people that are able to think and, more importantly, act differently is just
3%. Really low.
So here's the question: where are the other 97%? Where do you think they're stuck, Karen?
Where are they stuck?
Yeah.
They're stuck copying each other.
Right. So they're stuck copying each other. I would argue that they're stuck here in a box where they're constrained by the norms of their industry. And to your point, one of the things that we do as a marketer is we begin to benchmark what successful people do in our industry. And you just said it. What does that lead to?
Copying each other, yeah.
Right. Doesn't lead to differentiation. It leads to sameness. So here's the deal. In our book, we have this great matrix. Now, by law, you cannot write a business book without having what? A really nice matrix in it. So we expand this box into what we call a 4-box model. All right.
Mhm.
Anna, you did a great job on the introduction. Unmute yourself. You're first up. So here's the deal for our matrix, right? We have at the bottom of the y-axis what's normal, and at the top what makes you weird, imperfect, or different. And then on the x-axis, here's the deal. You can do more, or you can purposely push back and do less, right? So that gives us these 4 boxes. Anna, you're up. The first box is the idea of doing less of what makes you weird. And we call that the cow or the conform quadrant. And Anna, here's the question. Are cows unique?
I would say yes, they are, because each one of them looks different. Like
Yes,
how many
stop there,
different
stop,
spots they
yes.
have.
Yeah, because their spots are like our fingerprints,
Right.
right? No 2 cows are alike. But here's the important thing. Do cows, Anna, know that they're unique?
I'm going to guess that they do not know they're unique.
No. In fact, one cow could walk here, and what would all the rest of the cows do?
Follow them.
Follow, literally creating a cow path and never straying, right?
Herd
So, yeah,
mentality.
they're oblivious to the fact of what makes them unique and different. They're just not doing anything to own it. Now, the opposite of that, Debbie, do me a favor, unmute yourself. The opposite of that is the idea of doing more of what makes you weird. And Debbie, we call this the peacock or the strut quadrant. The peacock or the strut quadrant. Debbie, your first question. Are peacocks unique?
That's a great question. I think
Yes or no?
they're the same.
They're the same as the cow, yes, because their feathers are exactly like the spots of a cow.
Okay.
But what's the difference? What do peacocks do?
Well, they act like they're different. Yeah.
They're not afraid, right?
Yeah.
What do they do with their feathers? They put it out there
Mhm.
for everyone to see, right? They own what makes them unique or different, right? We call this the strut. They're not afraid to double or triple down on their uniqueness. Great stuff. Nancy, unmute yourself. You're up next. Nancy, you get the third quadrant. This is the idea of doing more of what everyone else does as normal. Okay, we call this the match or the zebra quadrant. Your first question. Are zebras black with white stripes or white with black stripes?
That's a good question. I would say they're white with black stripes.
You would say they're white with black stripes. You would be incorrect. We're going to give you another chance here in a second. They are actually black with white stripes, right? Now, here's the thing. Has anyone ever been able to tell one zebra, Nancy, from another zebra?
Zebra from another zebra. Well, when they stand together in a herd, they all blend together.
Right, because even if you added more stripes, right, if you benchmarked and started to do a lot of the things that everyone else does, it's hard to stand out from the herd, correct? Now, here's your last question, Nancy. Why do zebras purposefully stand together in groups of 4 to 5?
Well, for protection. So
Exactly.
predators.
Because when a lion sees 4 or 5 zebras, what do they actually see?
They see one huge zebra.
They see one really big. Yeah, you're exactly right. They see one and they won't attack it. It's an actual prey defense, right? So if you're matching what everyone else does, you start to look like everyone else. And that's not a road to stand out and being different. All right, who's going to be my last contestant today? All right, let's see. Taylor, we haven't heard from you yet. Unmute yourself. You're up.
All right.
You've got our fourth quadrant right here. This is the idea of purposely doing less, like pulling back of what everyone else does is normal. We call that the polar bear or the subtract quadrant. So here's your National Geographic question. What color are polar bears?
White.
No.
Ah!
Who wants to help her? Do you need to you need to call in a friend or what?
I think so. Call in a Google.
Yeah, so it's kind of a trick question. Polar bears are actually black.
Oh.
The reason why we see them as white is that their fur is translucent. So when the light passes through their fur, literally all of the colors start to get subtracted, and what gets bounced back to our eyes is the absence of color, which is white. If anyone has young kids, what happens when you put all colors together into one? You get black.
Yeah.
Right? So polar bears are interesting animals. They pretty much live solitary lives. They're not afraid to leave the herd and go out on their own. All polar bears are left-handed, Taylor, and they're the only animal on Earth that actively hunts human beings. Yet they don't get their own week on the Discovery Channel. Okay? So here's the thing, Taylor, last question for you.
Yes.
Which of the two animals, if you want to stand out and be different, which two animals do you think you want to emulate?
The polar bear.
You want to absolutely the polar bear and what other animal?
Peacock.
The peacock, yeah. You want to stay in what we call in the book, this is the flaunting matrix, we say staying in what we call the flaunting zone. And the entire concept of this book is simply this. It's that your flaws are actually the things that make you awesome. Or as we say in the book, they're the things that make you what?
Blossom.
Blossom. Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing. If you don't believe me that you're, Nat's like shaking his head. He's not believing me. I say, Nat, if you don't believe me, I want you to consult one of the greatest philosophers of our time. Who am I talking about? Kanye. Right? You don't believe me, right? Believe Kanye. So here's the deal. My co-author, who sends his regards, he was hoping to be here. He had some travel issues. He just landed in Nashville. Excuse me. He sends his regards. But we looked at over now 450 examples of companies that have achieved competitive separation. And what we found is that there's essentially 8 ways that you can stand out and be different. And they're the 8 different types of pink goldfish. Now, not only is Flossom the concept, it's also the acronym. So the first one is what we call flaunting. Remember we talked about this idea of the flaunting zone? We see flaunt as something that's very positive. The definition we like is the idea of parading without shame. Owning who you are and not being afraid to put it out there for everyone to see. John, unmute yourself if you don't mind. I'm going to give you an example of flaunting, and we have to go to this category. Can you see that, John? We're talking about cough syrup.
Got it.
What's the weakness or the bad thing about cough syrup, John?
It's not bourbon.
It's not bourbon, right? It might have a little of that same sting though when you take it back. But yeah, it tastes horrible, right? And so how would you try to fix, if you were the head of marketing or product development for a cough syrup, what would you try to do?
Probably add cherry flavoring.
Yeah, flavor it, maybe reformulate it so it doesn't taste as bad, like new and improved, right? Well, there's one cough syrup company and they're from Canada. It's called Buckley's. And Buckley's might be the worst tasting cough syrup you've ever heard of. In fact, Dave was doing this presentation a few months ago, and there was somebody from Canada in the room, and this was not group participation time. He showed this slide, and immediately it was like PTSD. This guy said, "That stuff tastes like shit," and look, it tastes horrible. Now, here's the thing: Buckley's decided not to try to fix the flavor. They actually leaned into it, and instead of actually making excuses for it, they did an entire campaign where they did a taste test where they compared Buckley's to sweaty gym socks, to trash bag leakage, and I'm not sure what this is, public restroom puddle. I want you to see his face as he experiences this.
I can't tell. Must be made by the same people.
All right, so he actually would prefer the public restroom puddle, right? So what's the message that Buckley was trying to send, right? People swear by it and at it, right? No pain, no gain. Now, when they started this campaign, here's the deal. They were just 2% of the market in Canada. They wanted to expand into the US. Within 18 months of launching this, they were 11% market share. Now, I'm no math whiz, Nat, but the last time I checked, that's a 500, that's what in Canada they call that a hockey stick, I think, right? So that's flaunting. That's not being apologizing because it had bad taste. They leaned into it and they told you it tastes even worse than you thought. And they realized that it wasn't for everyone super successful. So don't trust Dave and I when we tell you these are funny stories. They also have the business results behind them. Now, the second type is what we call lopsiding. Lopsiding is this idea, it exists way up here in the Peacock region. This is the idea of doubling and tripling down on what makes you unique or different, right? So who remembers seeing this movie? Raise your hand if you remember this one. Sonia, unmute yourself. What was the premise of Supersize Me, if people hadn't seen this?
I watched it in middle school, so it might be a little fuzzy.
What did Morgan
so he-
Spurlock do?
So he was on a quest to eat high caloric foods from, I believe it was McDonald's.
Right, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner for an entire month. And what did he learn?
That I can't recall, but I just remember him being miserable throughout the experience, feeling bloated, heavy.
Yeah, his health, he gained weight, his health declined, his liver started having issues. Evidently, as Americans, we didn't realize up until that point that fast food was bad for you, right? So what did not only did McDonald's get rid of supersizing as a result of this movie, what did McDonald's and almost every fast food company do after this movie came out, Sonia?
I guess
I'll help you. They started to put healthy stuff on the menu. Salad, fruit, yogurt, water, right? But there was one company that decided to go the opposite direction. Would you know who that was, Sonia?
Burger.
Now, by me, what's that?
Oh no, I guessed wrong. I Burger King.
No. So Hardee's, but out your way, it's Carl's Jr., right? Same company. And they decided to actually lean into it. And at the time, they were closing stores. They came out with a thing called the Great American Thick Burger. Let me let you have a look at that in all its glory. That's 2/3 of a pound of meat. Forget the quarter pounder, an entire hot dog on top. And I love this. Potato chips on below as if you're too lazy to pick them up one at a time, right? They took food that was bad for you and they doubled and tripled down on it. Now, I have to share this next one that they did with a great sense of pride. See, I live in North Carolina now. We are the biggest pork producing state in the entire nation. They recently launched a thing called the apocalypse, right? This is hashtag no part of the pig left behind. And you know, people are walking in and they're like, you know, give it to me in the wrap, you know, because I'm trying to manage my carbs. You know, with a Diet Coke, give me it with the wrap there. That'd be great, right? Here's the thing. Every fast food company that was offering salads, fruit, yogurt, and water realized that that's not why people actually came to fast food establishments. Hardee's and Carl's Jr. flourished. Turns out that just a few years ago, McDonald's actually reversed course, got rid of their signature burgers, got rid of the salads, the yogurt, and the fruit. They will sell you water, by the way, if you want. The third type is what we call antagonizing. So we did flaunting for F, lopsiding for L. The A is antagonizing. And antagonizing is the idea that so much of our time is focused on the target market that we think you should also spend a little time with the anti-target market. And if you can realize who you don't want as a customer and you can push them away, you will actually attract your target. So an example of this comes from Texas, a place called the Alamo Drafthouse. Has anyone been to the Alamo Drafthouse? So let me tell you about it. Entertainment Weekly said the best movie theater in all of America. So it is a fantastic place. We just did a tour around the country. We visited the Alamo Drafthouse in Austin. That's where it started, Austin, Texas. Amazing food, great beer selection, and they're ultra serious about their movies. So when you go to see a movie at the Alamo Drafthouse, first off, you can't come late because they shut the doors. They don't want anyone interrupting you once the movie starts. And there's a strict no talking, no texting policy. Well, a few years ago, there was a woman who was going to a movie. She was talking and texting. She got warned. And then the second time that they had to tell her, they yanked her out of the theater and sent her on her way. Well, she left a blistering 1.5-minute voicemail complaint to Alamo Drafthouse. Now, what do most, let's see this. Eileen, do me a favor, unmute yourself. Eileen, what happens when a customer calls up and complains? Now, this is a risk because I can just see Eileen's picture here. John, you jump in for her. What do you do when a customer leaves an angry voicemail?
What does Karen want now?
What does Karen want now, right? But what do most companies do? They would call back, they would apologize. Maybe they would offer to give money back, maybe a coupon, something goodwill-wise. Well, that's not, John, who do you think they called instead of her back? I'll tell you who they called. They called their lawyers and they said, can we use this? And what do you think they said, John?
Knowing the attorneys, they probably said, sure.
Well, they said, look, you can only use somebody's recording if they knew that they were being recorded. When we leave a voicemail message, we for sure know we were being recorded. They have made it into a PSA that they play as a trailer before their movies. They put it on their website. It went viral. And I'm going to let Anderson Cooper tell you the rest of the story.
All right. Thanks very much. I should have time now for the ridiculous. Tonight we're adding my latest source of annoyance, people who talk and text at the movies. And I want to talk about one young woman in particular, a woman who was repeatedly warned to stop texting during a movie in Austin, Texas, wouldn't stop, and was promptly thrown out of the theater. Then she left an angry voicemail for the theater, which is posted on its blog for your enjoyment.
No, that wasn't supposed to text in your little crappy theater.
All right. Did I mention that the theater is called the Alamo Drafthouse and that they serve beer? Well, I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but indeed, I think our texter may have partaken a bit, a little pre-party during the previews, perhaps. Listen to her next defense.
So excuse me for using my phone in USA, United States of America, where you are free to text in a theater.
I love living in the United States of America, where you are free to text in a theater. Now, that's the lady who knows her Constitution. What's all that freedom jazz about if some drunk girl can't constantly update her Facebook status while people are trying to concentrate on Kung Fu Panda 2? Next, the text lady employs something I like to call the silent but deadly defense.
And it was silent. It wasn't on loud. It wasn't bothering anybody. You guys obviously were being with me.
I'm sorry, drunk girl, but texting in a dark movie theater is like lighting a road flare. People are going to see it. You might not through your beer goggles, but everyone else will. Drunk girl didn't give up, though. She's been hitting the wall books, apparently, and comes up with two more arguments for her defense. A combo of the I didn't know defense, seasoned with just a touch of the I do it everywhere else defense.
I was not aware that I couldn't text in your theater, all right? I texted in all the other theaters in Austin, and no one ever gave a about what I was doing on my phone, all right?
Now, maybe she has texted her way through every other movie theater in Austin. I wouldn't be surprised, but as it turns out, this particular theater has a well-known zero tolerance policy against talking and cell phones. It's kind of this theater's crusade, and they all kinds of creative announcements about it. Watch. I do an electric cattle prod with me, so if I hear someone talking, I'll give them just not an aggressive shock, but just a light shock.
My name is Pedro Sanchez from Napoleon Dynamite. If you vote for me, I'll make sure that everyone is very quiet in the theater. Don't talk during the movies. Turn off your cell phones and beepers, please.
Yeah, you can find out who they are, and then cut their tongue out.
So I think it's pretty clear where the Alamo Drafthouse stands on this issue. And you know what? Maybe a theater with that kind of policy just isn't for everyone.
You know, I will never be coming back to your Alamo Drafthouse or whatever. I'd rather go to a regular theater where people are actually polite.
Oh yeah, the regular theater are full of polite people, politely shouting at the screen, politely bringing screaming toddlers to rated R movies at 11 o'clock at night, politely talking and texting through the whole movie. To see it.
All right, so here's the thing. So imagine even if she didn't call and complain, imagine she's having brunch with 6 of her girlfriends the following weekend, and she launches in and tells the story of the Alamo Drafthouse. Now, let's be honest here. Taylor, unmute yourself. What do you think half of her girlfriends are thinking as she's telling the story of the Alamo Drafthouse?
Well, half of them know that she's crazy. And so, you know, they know that she definitely was in the wrong. I'm sure there'll be the other half who will agree with her, maybe at face value, but then perhaps not after the fact.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're like, what was the name of that theater again? Oh, because I'm never going there. What was the address, just so I can, right? Half of our friends are going, yeah, you're the people that infuriate me when I go to a movie. And I would love to go to a place, right, where you're not at. And this is more important. The other 3 friends who the Alamo Drafthouse doesn't ever want them to come aren't going to come. So if they can make a better experience for people that are like them, that love going to movies, they're okay with alienating the rest, okay? The 4th type is what we call withholding. And withholding is classic polar bear strategy, right? This is the idea of pulling back. Instead of doing more of what everyone else does is quote unquote normal, you're possibly pulling back. All right, who haven't I picked on in a while? Debbie, come back to us. All right, Debbie, you look at this picture. What picture? What are we describing in this picture in the state of retail?
Total chaos. Yeah, it's Black Friday for sure. I've seen some
Yeah,
of it
it's
myself.
Black Friday, right? You're a retailer. They call it Black Friday because for 10 and a half months, you've been in the red, right? This is your most important day in retail where you finally get into the black. So Debbie, you're a retailer. How do you compete against everyone else?
Well, you
How
have
would
to
you
have
compete?
you have to have the best deals out there. And
Yeah,
maybe the most deals.
we have a great sale. We've got these doorbuster deals, right? You might even say, hey, we open earlier than everyone else, or we stay open later on Friday, right? Well, there's one retailer who decided not to do the normal stuff. In fact, they made a courageous move 5 years ago to shut down all of their stores on the most important day, and that was REI. REI said, look, we're all about our members being outside with our families over the Thanksgiving holiday. We don't want them jockeying in line, waiting to get into REI. And it was a gutsy move, right? This is the most important day of the year. How did they stand out? Not by doing more, but by pulling back and doing less. Not only did they shut down 150 stores, Debbie, they shut down their website for all of Black Friday. You couldn't even go online and buy anything. They've now turned it into a movement called the Opt Outside movement. Their memberships have increased. Their sales have increased, not by doing more, but by standing out, by purposely doing less. All right, so a little bit of a recap. We've talked now about flaunting, lopsiding, antagonizing, withholding. The S is what we call swerving. And here's the thing. I'm going to practice a little withholding. I'm not going to tell you what swerving is, right? In fact, I'm going to flaunt the fact that I'm not going to tell you what swerving is. And I hope for some of you, it might even piss you off and antagonize you. You're like, okay, just go on to the next one. All right, the O is for opposing. This is the idea when everyone starts to follow the leader and do what's normal, some brands will go in the exact opposite direction. And let me tell you about Bernie. No, not this Bernie. Let me tell you about a place called Bernie, Texas. Okay, Bernie, Texas is a suburb of San Antonio. And they wanted to raise money for charity. And if you raise money for charity, there's only two things that people do, a 5K or a golf tournament, right? Now, the problem with doing a 5K or a golf tournament is that every other charity is doing what? A 5K or a golf tournament. When you can't schedule your 5K because everyone else is doing one, that should be a message of not doing what everyone else is doing. They were trying to raise money for an organization called Blessings in a Backpack. Blessings in a Backpack takes kids that do school lunch or reduced or free breakfast. They actually send them home on the weekend with a backpack of food, knowing that may be the only food that they get. So great cause. Instead of doing a 5K, they did the 0.5K. And so we actually went to Bernie, Texas. It took Dave and I, not walking very quickly, just under 6 minutes to do a 0.5K. It is 546 yards. It's not a lot. Here's the deal. Let me tell you how they differentiate the 0.5K. It starts with a pre-race beer. right? And here's the deal. You say, Stan, I can't wake up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning to do this 0.5K. Hey, they get you. The race doesn't start till 11 a.m. And halfway through the race, they actually have an aid station, right? With coffee and donuts. They know, hey, look, you might need a little pick-me-up. That's no problem. They even have a smoking section. You know, no judgment. You need to burn one down, not a problem. And then, of course, when you finish this race, they hand you a post-race beer. Now, here's the thing. What do you get when you sign up for this? Of course, you get a finisher medal. Hey, you did it, right? You get a T-shirt so you can brag to all your friends. But more importantly, you get that sweet little bumper sticker. You know, forget the 26.2. You can tell all your friends, I did the 0.5K. And then, look, here's the deal. You might say, look, I can't even handle this. No problem. You can do the VIP option as long as you donate twice the amount. They will put you on a VW bus and actually drive you the entire route, and you still get your medal, your T-shirt, and your post-race beer. And you can feel real good about it. They've even created a thing right before COVID. They called it the virtual option. Someone will put a GoPro on and actually do the race for you, right? And you can watch it at home or not. They don't care. So great example of doing the opposite of what everyone else does as normal. The M in Flossom is the concept of microweirding. Now, this is right in the middle of the matrix. This is the idea of doing small, little things to stand out. So we visited this on our tour. This is a hotel in Southern California. It's called the Magic Castle Hotel. And it's not really that impressive. It kind of looks like Melrose Place. If you remember Melrose Place, it's this tiny hotel. There's this little pool here, right? One of the things that they do less of is that they don't have mini bars in any of the rooms, right? So you can't order a $7 Diet Coke. If you want a soda or a snack, you simply go down to the front desk and they actually will give it to you for free. Pretty cool, right? They also have a pool just like everyone else does in Southern California, but their pool has one thing that's a little different. Their pool has a thing called the popsicle hotline. So think about it. You're sitting by the pool, you're getting a little warm, right? You walk over, you don't even have to dial. You pick up the phone, you tell them what colors you want, and within 1 minute on a silver tray, they deliver you your popsicles. Did anyone ever go to a hotel and left a bad review because they didn't get popsicles? That has never happened. But people appreciate that as a little thing that they do a little differently that then they share with other people. The E in Flossom is the idea of exposing. And that sometimes we have to own even the negative stuff that's said about us, and we can't be afraid to put it out there as part of who we are. So let me give you an example of this. It comes from Utah. Has anyone ever heard of Snowbird? So Anna's shaking her head. Snowbird is this mountain resort. It's literally like the side of a cliff in Utah. And they decided to do an entire, this is pretty gutsy, an entire campaign where they featured all of their one-star reviews about the resort. So let me share a couple examples. I love this one. Powder too deep. There are no easy runs. And if you really get the fine print there, it says, we felt like we were taking our life into our own hands. Or this one right here, too advanced. And what is Snowbird saying when they share those negative reviews about their resort? Essentially, they're saying, look, if you're a beginner or an intermediate skier, we're not the place for you. But if you think you're a really advanced skier, and this is important, so they're pushing away the beginners. But when they do that, what are they attracting by exposing who they are? They're attracting people that actually do skiing and snowboarding as a thrill-seeking activity, and the ones that want the challenge of a really difficult mountain. So that's the 8 different types within the Flossom framework. What I'd love to do now is, we've got about 10 minutes left. I'd love to open it up for questions and comments. So Taylor, Anna, I haven't been paying attention to the chat. Did we have anything that popped up there?
2 little questions in here, and thank you so much. Like, my goodness, this has been educational and entertaining, and I love it. And I'm going to ask you this first question, but before I do that, I'm going to be posting a poll. Please, please, please take a moment to complete the poll. There's about 4 or 5 questions in there. So go ahead, say yes or no to all 5 questions, then press on submit. And we truly appreciate it. It really does help with programming. So thank you all for participating. You should see it on your screen now. Okay, so Stan, my question for you is, how does a company or its marketers really, I think you've given us a lot of great examples, but how do they get over that fear of being different, especially when feeling the pressure to, live within the constraints of the industry or appear like they're in the know of, current trends? So how do they get over that fear?
Yeah, so part of it is, I think one of the things we have in the book is a great assessment, right? Because all of this has to be born out of truths that you find out. Right? So you do the assessment. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And what we come to realize is that everything we think is a perceived weakness also has a corresponding strength. And so I think it has to begin with a little bit of awareness. What we say is the first step to find what those truths are. And then the second step is to actually have to wrap our arms around it and accept who we are and not be afraid to actually appreciate those things. And to be, this is important, to be unapologetic about those things. And then I think the third step is to then try to find alignment. So one, we have to make sure that the things that make us different align well with what our customers appreciate about us, as well as we have alignment that when they go to our website or they visit our showroom or our office, that difference is very much to the forefront and is recognizable, right? That it's in accordance with who we are. And then we talk about the last step, and you have to do those previous 3 steps, is what we call amplification. And amplification is either turning some things up to 11, right? You might do some things at like a 7 or 8, but it's the idea of we're going to take some things to 11, or amplification works the other way. What are we doing as a 5 or a 6 that our customers really don't care about, that we can turn the dial all the way down to 0, right? And then redistribute those resources and attention to the areas that truly matter. So does that help there in terms of the process?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's also just a matter of kind of maybe getting over it, I think, is one of the biggest things. It's getting over the fact that, okay, that it's different. You're saying to honor it and celebrate it. It looks like we had a couple of questions that just came through. Wondering if you can repeat some of the definitions or what some of those phrases were. So someone said they missed what M and E were. So if you could
Yeah,
look at
so
those.
M is the idea of what we call micro-weirding. And micro-weirding is really more about the experience that we provide and little things that we can do to amplify a little more of what makes us different or a little less of what makes us normal, right? The E is called exposing, and that's new in the 2.0 edition. And that's the idea of having kind of radical transparency and being able to really own who you are, even the negative stuff that's said about you. Let me give an example of that. So we just traveled around the country 11,000 miles, and we stopped at 10 different national parks. And the reason why we did that, one of which was the Grand Canyon. My co-author Dave did rim to rim to rim challenge. And believe it or not, the Grand Canyon has a 1-star review. Somebody wrote about the Grand Canyon, a hole, a very big hole, 1 star. And here's the thing. There's only 62 national parks. They all have at least one 1-star review. Bryce Canyon, 2 orange, 2 spiky. Volcano National Park in Hawaii, didn't even get to touch the lava, 1 star, right? So here's the thing. If national parks can't get all 5-star reviews, what chance does your business have? Do you think you're really going to please everyone? And even if you could, should you? And so that's the challenge of the book, is to realize we're not for everyone. We all know this as marketers. If we try to be for everyone, who do we end up being for?
Get out and walk.
Alexa off. Alexa always tells me to get out and walk. She's so bossy. Alexa off.
This is a reminder.
She's still reminding me.
Just gotta say, oh, please. No. Awesome. And then we had someone else in here too saying if you could possibly repeat lopsiding again.
So lopsiding is a Peacock strategy. So withholding and lopsiding are like pretty extreme strategies. So lopsiding is the idea of taking something that makes us not normal, but a little weird or different, and doubling and tripling down on it. So that was the example from Hardee's of, look, we're serving unhealthy food. Maybe we should serve less of it and follow what McDonald's and everyone else is doing. They said, no, people know fast food is not healthy. If we're going to do it, let's not mess around. Let's actually add more calories, more fat, right? More flavor, as opposed to doing less.
Excellent. All right. Anyone else want to unmute themselves and ask a question?
Taylor, I'll ask a question. I don't know if this is an example of this exactly, but when Avis came out with their "We're Second Best."
Right, we try harder.
Right. Now, I don't know that it's an exact example, except that it might be an example of freeing yourself from the constraints of marketing, not necessarily the car rental industry, but marketing. Usually marketers don't ever want to say, hey, we're second best, and have that be, and, luckily it turned out to be a very successful, right. And maybe even a better message, because we try harder is a really good message.
Right. I was also going to share, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Nebraska, it used to be that their campaign was Nebraska nice, right? Visit Nebraska, visit nice. Well, 4 years in a row, they were 50 of the top 50 states to visit. Like, you can't go anywhere from there. Their new campaign was this: Nebraska, honestly, we're not for everyone. Right? And what did they say? Look, we've got to admit who we are. Well, what it allowed them to do is actually do some fun stuff. Like, here's an example. Luckily for you, there's nothing to do here, right? So they have this deal where they take these like livestock feed tanks and float them down a lazy river, right? And if that seems, by the way, there's one paddle and two coolers in this livestock feed tank. I don't think a lot of paddling is going on. But look, we don't have to be everything. Let's be honest with who we are. This went viral. Stephen Colbert did his entire monologue one night, and he dedicated it to the state of Nebraska. And at one point he said, "Nebraska, are you okay? Seriously?" And I love the Nebraska folks because they immediately tweeted Stephen Colbert and they said, "We are not okay because that's Oklahoma." So here's the thing as I finish up, and I want to give it back, is the message of the book here is don't try to stand out from the crowd. The message is avoid crowds altogether. And thank you guys for spending a little time with me over lunch. David and I appreciate it. We feel like this is a very important book as it relates to marketing, and I'm glad you were able to take the time out.
Great. Stan, thank you so much. This was really a lot of fun, and you caught a lot of us by surprise because we didn't know we were going to have to answer questions and try to be right. So thank you. And we really appreciate you coming here, to be with us this lunchtime. And we're glad that we're able to check off an AMA chapter for you. So now you just have 5 more to work on.
5 more. You gotta work on your cousins to the west. I need Orange County and LA.
Ooh,
and Sacramento.
okay.
No, not just those 2. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll work on that. And, and again, for me, I'm taking away, there was a lot I took away, but I loved what you said. Sometimes it's just the little things you do different that are the things that people really appreciate. And we always have to remember, can you please everyone? And should you? And a lot of times that pleasing everyone is related to price. So again, can you please everyone and should you? And more likely the answer is no, you should not, and embrace that. So thank you, Stan. And I hope this gave everybody a lot of things to think about. And just as we sign off here, I just want to remind people that our next event will be September 9th, which is a Thursday. We are online here again. And Ben Holland, who is actually one of our past AMA presidents here at the Phoenix chapter, he will be talking about Google Analytics for beginners and advanced. Ben's a really great speaker, so please join us. He has a really great way of helping us beginners understand Google Analytics. And if you're a marketer, it's something that you need to understand, even if you're not a pro at it. So please do join us. And again, thank you to our sponsors, and in particular, thank you, Taylor, for hosting us once again from Financial Potion. And we hope to see you again on September 9th at 3 p.m. And everybody have a great rest of the day. And Stan, again, thank you. And hopefully we'll be seeing you again soon next year.
I'd love to come out. Phoenix is one of my favorites.
We're going to work on a workshop with you. So we'll be in touch. Thanks, everyone.